This is a conversation with Caroline Labouchere. She is a model, coach, and public speaker. Amongst her multiple achievements, one that stands out is when at the age of 53, she led a full-page campaign in British Vogue. In this episode, we discuss modeling, aging, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, feminism, and fitness. This is no time. If you like what you see, hear, touch, or feel, then do subscribe on YouTube, follow this channel on Spotify, or rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. This project continues to take a lot of my time, money, and effort and will to live. So if you'd like to see it continue, then do consider supporting it on Patreon. And thank you to the two people who have already done so. For other forms of love and support, you can follow this channel on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, or follow me personally. And now, it is no time. So I've structured this interview like an ultra marathon with the easiest questions in the beginning, the hardest in the middle, and then hopefully we'll have a good finish line.
Okay.
And I've been inspired by the 100K run that you did in 2019, I believe, with your husband, which took about 16 hours. So before we start, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that particular run, because you've described crossing that finishing line as a very emotional experience. So what was it like? What was going through your mind?
I have never loved my husband as much as I did crossing that line. It was quite traumatic, actually. We did not expect it to take 16 and 3/4 hours. We thought in our minds that it would be about 10 hours. So that's a big difference. And it was dark. It was cold. David was wearing a head torch. It wasn't very bright. The path was very rutted. So, you know, when you're walking along, you think it's smooth, but it's pitch dark. So your foot suddenly drops into a hole, which is jarring for your back. You're already aching. There's no way you can run because you don't know what's ahead of you. And
sorry, where was this?
This was in England, running between Swindon and Oxford. So we're in the middle of nowhere. And then at the very end, there was a flipping U-turn. There's nothing worse when you can actually see people coming towards you so close to the finish, but it's cold and you're not wearing enough. You're walking, so you're not staying warm. It was traumatic. But we kept on saying, if we don't do this, we're going to have to do it again. We're not doing it again. But actually, now we are going to do it again, and we want to do it faster. So that's our next aim. But we were discussing trying to get ourselves through this trauma. We were putting ourselves somewhere else in the run. So we're now talking ourselves forward and saying, okay, so we're in the ranches, we're walking with the dogs, and oh yes, do you remember that thing on the corner? Yes, we're coming up to the that area where the big house is, that's a funny color. And we walked in our imagination, walking around the ranches as we're out in the middle of nowhere. I couldn't have done it alone. And we had to leave our son at 86 kilometers too. He couldn't make it. He had too many blisters. He was in too much pain. So leaving him in the middle of nowhere at 86 kilometers was kind of like leaving your baby lion cub.
Yeah, I imagine. But 86, he has nothing to be embarrassed about. 86 is quite a lot.
It is. And then he went on to do 5 marathons in 5 days in Africa. So yeah, he's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I would tap out at 10 kilometers max. So I've seen a lot of parallels between your life and an ultra marathon as well. Initially, you've described the days of your youth as very funky, and then you had a period of a lot of struggle, where specifically when you became homeless and when your husband went away for 10 months as well, when your kids were quite young. And then now it feels like you've crossed a certain finish line towards the first part of your life, the first 50 years.
You are so wise.
Well, no, it's just my interns who work on the show who can pose these questions. And I'm not sure if this analogy works, but what it feels to me is that you have done one race where you had certain goals and you have achieved that successfully, raised your kids as well. And now it feels like, having overcome those obstacles, just like this 100K race, you have now started a completely different one, where you have completely different goals for the next 50 years of your life. Does this analogy work?
It does, but I think that must work in everybody's life. And it's up to you if you choose to take goals on beyond 50, because that is a choice. That becomes a choice in your life. Do I settle down, do a little bit less in life? Do I give myself goals? Can life be better now than it ever was? There are many questions that you should ask yourself and not just give up. It's too easy to give up.
So what's that drive? It's very easy to sit at home, watch Netflix, eat Maltesers.
Yes, you know me.
So what's making you go out there every single day, try to make a difference and stay fit, and also not just wait around to become a grandmother, like you said?
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to being a grandma. There's no doubt about it,
Sure.
because you can have the babies and then hand them back. But it's knowing that I've potentially got 50 years ahead of me, and knowing that I don't want to do nothing for 50 years, that I want to prove to myself as to others that it's still possible to be excited to be alive, and give yourself some goals, some big goals. Because 50 is nothing now. It used to be older. And I still, even yesterday, got a WhatsApp about a job available, and it always says old woman aged 45 to 70. What even is that? And I measured them back and said, change your language.
Right.
If you don't change your language, what hope have we got? But we are not old in our 50s.
Yeah, I do apologize if I do mention.
I'm just going to feel like I need to touch the Lego too, but I would like that bit and that bit.
You don't have to. No. I do apologize if I do. Say old in this conversation. I'm just very used to.
It's not. It's really. It's just something that we should be teaching our children, right. that things have changed as we move forward. There are so many things have changed, but I'm not old. My mother at 75, 76, she is old. What is she if I'm old? Ancient? Older? No, ancient is 100. Yes. I mean, if you're going to categorize it.
How do you know that life can get better? Because you've described up to the age of 53 that you were quite content. But now, looking back on that, now life is a lot more exciting for you. So how hard is it for people to become aware of there are multiple opportunities out there for them, and that being content at that point is not just enough? There could be a lot more for you.
I guess knowing what the difference between content is: content eating a bit too much, putting on weight and not being healthy, right. Is content running a marathon every year. Everybody's content is different. Mm-hmm. But if you run a marathon, then what's next? Do you because you can't do it faster generally, because as you get older, you have fewer fast twitch muscles. Sure. So you really can't try and beat your time every year. So then you have to go for distance, because at age, you're better at long distance. Your stamina is better. So it's what you're happy to settle with, really. And there's no reason to settle at the end of the day.
You've always said that be a Viking, not a victim.
Yes.
I think it does apply in this situation as well.
Yes. Not raping and pillaging, obviously. But but did you watch the TV show? Oh, I'm so disappointed it's finished.
Which TV?
It's finished forever. Vikings.
Oh, no, I didn't watch
that. Oh, best. Oh, the Shield Maidens are incredible. Gosh, they know how to fight.
Oh, right.
You have to watch it.
Probably. I've kept this ban on myself from watching TV shows, because if I just start binging,
but if you binge, then there's nothing left, and so you have to stop.
Yeah.
My daughter has watched all of Netflix. Yeah. She's finished it.
Yeah. I just don't want to get down that road. Okay. So now that we've started this ultra marathon of an interview, it only makes sense to start with your initial years. So you were born in Islington, UK. And then Islington.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I always mess these things up, you know. No, it was in Northampton.
Islington's London. So I was born in London, and then we moved to Bedfordshire when my mother got remarried when I was 6.
Right. So what I want to get from you is, what was it like growing up in the UK in the 70s and the 80s? Historically, it was viewed as a very gloomy decade, because it was a period of political unrest in terms of strikes and unions, and that led to the rise of Margaret Thatcher. But as it so often happens in a period of political unrest, there was a great cultural boom as well. And that was the period in UK when there was the punk movement and Manchester, Glastonbury, pop rock came about, the emergence of ABBA, David Bowie,
Oh my gosh.
and also the rise in popularity of the British invasion with Beatles and Rolling Stones. But it was also the time when Monty Python came out and Fawlty Towers, really strong British icons. So what elements of your childhood or teenage years growing up in the 70s and the 80s really stick out to you when you look back?
I'm so impressed with your research.
It's the interns. It's
Those blooming interns.
yeah, unpaid as well.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, being brought up in the country, I had a pony. I went hunting, as you do. Yeah, I went hunting, and my mother married a lord, so that's the way life was. We had very little money and a very large house, and not a lot of heating. It's the way I was brought up. I don't know any different to that. It wasn't special. I would go and visit people's houses, and they had a lot of money and big houses, so it was different in that way. But Mum didn't have staff, so she would literally start cleaning the house at one end, get to the other, and then she'd have to start all over again. She was tired all of the time. She was probably menopausal, but nobody spoke about that, so she cried a lot. My siblings were all at boarding school, but I had a different father to them, so I didn't go to boarding school because he was paying the fees. So I was the only one at day school, which made it tricky because my parents didn't really mix with the parents of the day school. So I had two sets of friends. In the summer holidays, it would be family friends, families of my siblings who were all at boarding school, and never my day school friends. So it was kind of mixed up. But I think mixing it up is good. It teaches you lessons. And
interesting that you mentioned, so I believe your stepfather was the Lord Baron of Pavenham?
Pavenham.
Pavenham.
Yeah.
Never get these pronunciations were my worst. I stayed in a hall called Hume Hall in Manchester, and I used to call it Hulme or some initially, and they were like, "Oh, you mean Hume?" And I called it Plymouth, not Plymouth.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so it took a while. Anyway, so interesting that you mentioned that. So you were in British royalty, but you mentioned that it was a tough period in terms of finances.
Yeah, because you have to remember that people were brought up back then to take over as the lord of that area, to look after the people, to employ the people in that area. So having farmland and employing locals, because everybody in the village worked on that estate. So that is the way it used to happen. And that's just the way it was. The gamekeeper would look after the pheasants. You'd have these wonderful ceremonies at Christmas time. We had the Yule log ceremony, where somebody would bring a big log and it would go on the fire, and somebody would speak, and it was a beautiful time as a child. But I don't know politically what was going on.
What was the Yule log ceremony?
Yule log. It was just a historic thing. That's something that happened every year in the house at Christmas time. The Yule log was cut down. One of the trees was cut down, and the log was brought in, and it was being grateful.
So what did you do exactly?
The log was brought to the house, past the ceremony, brought in and put on the fire, and then the Lord would speak. And yeah.
Interesting. What were you like as a teenager? I mentioned a lot of these cultural icons. I'm very fascinated by people who grew up in Britain at that time, because there's so many great influences all around you.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to be the person I wanted to be. I was a debutante at the same time as Trinny Woodall. I don't know if you've ever heard of Trinny, but she's a British style icon, I suppose. She has her own beauty company now, and she had fake tan, and she was quite loud and wearing mini skirts. And my mum had me dressed up in Laura Ashley. So I was wearing high-collared lace shirts with flat shoes and below the knee skirts And that's how I was brought up. I wasn't allowed to wear heels, but I wanted to be the fake tan person. But I think you go through life wanting to be, or thinking you want to be people.
Right.
You change, your icons change as you grow up.
Yeah. I've always noticed that the icons that I had 10 years back, now when I have the resources to actually chase that dream, I don't really want to be them. And now I've got someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always someone unattainable. It's never.
Well, yeah, but that's good. You don't want somebody mediocre. They've got to be special.
What about the fish and chips, the kebab takeaway? Is that something you used to like?
No, never been into kebabs ever.
Right.
I like my meat not to be chewed up, pre-chewed, and I like to know. So in my head, a kebab has always been pre-chewed. Whether it is or not, that's what is in my head.
What about the national dish, fish and chips?
I prefer to think it's sausages. Good English pork sausages. That to me, I'm not keen. Fish and chips, I think, oh, I really want fish and chips. It's a bit like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Really want Kentucky Fried Chicken. Smells great. And then you taste it and you think, that's why I don't eat it. Because it's actually not that great, but I forgot.
Yeah. The hype is always bigger than the taste.
Yeah, exactly. Right? But sausages are always good.
So English breakfast?
I love English breakfast any time of the day. Yeah.
Always liked it. It was a very good meal.
Who doesn't like that?
Yeah, just the right mix of things.
Yes, right?
Perfect. You also moved around quite a lot. I believe you've stayed in India, Germany, Canada, because your husband was placed in these different places. You've spoken about the difficulties of being an army wife. But on the flip side, I want to check with you, what are some of the positive traits that you develop being an army wife, and how does it help shape your personality?
Security, definitely. There's huge security. You can't just be fired tomorrow and lose your job unless you do something really crazy. Meeting people from every country. Our year in India was the best. Mimi was also made in Delhi through IVF. So I have a great fondness for Delhi because it gave me my girl. Max was made in Ottawa, and we had 4 previous attempts before Max worked. So I'm incredibly lucky to have them and have been able to travel to get them, because I don't know that I would have managed if I'd been stuck in England all that time. But I wouldn't have that any other way. David was happy. He's never been, well, I was going to say he's never been as happy, but he's really happy right now. But he loved, soldiers are incredible. They have the best sense of humor, and they're rude, they're shocking, they're dry, but they are soldiers, and you can't beat a good banter with a soldier.
Sorry, why do you think that is? Why do you think soldiers have a good sense of humor? Is it because it's a tough situation?
Yeah, they have to, yeah.
Right. It helps them cope.
Camaraderie. But there's no wokeness, or there wasn't any wokeness. Yeah. So everybody had nicknames. And if you had ginger hair, you had some nickname about having ginger hair, and there was never an issue. Right. You were still loved as a fellow soldier as much as anybody else. It really didn't matter.
Is that changing now?
Oh, I'm sure it must have. Right. We've been out for 11 years now, but it must have, because wokeness has hit the world.
Even the army. Okay, so we are moving into the slightly tougher questions as we keep chugging along this interview. So there's one particular moment in your life where you mentioned you walked inside Carrefour and you felt invisible. So what is that moment about?
I'm learning now that the majority of women have that feeling, and they don't know who to speak to. Even yesterday, I had a message from a lady saying she was close to tears. She didn't know what to do. And women have not spoken about menopause. They've not spoken about having feelings of depression. I mean, lack of sex drive is a big thing. It can destroy a marriage. And if you don't know why it's happening, how can you fix it? There are so many, there are 30 symptoms, and women still don't know what's going on with their bodies. So the more we speak about it, the better. And men should know too, because you should know why I don't want to have sex with you. You should know why I am depressed or was confident in going to work yesterday, but today I don't want to go. You know, they're really big issues for some women.
Yeah. So coming back to this incident in Carrefour, so were these emotions ever going through your mind at that point? Were this one?
What, the no sex?
No.
Yeah, well, that was one of them.
We're just feeling invisible because of
feeling invisible because people just walk. I mean, it happens to everybody anyway. People just walk past you and they bump into you and they ignore you. I'm a big hello fan, so I tend to try and make eye contact with people and say hello to them anyway, wherever. And I just remember it so well, walking into that entrance in Mall of the Emirates of Carrefour and just thinking, no one looks at me anymore. Whereas maybe if I had brown hair and loads of makeup, maybe they would. And then it was kind of, okay, well, what am I going to do about this situation? And it made a big difference putting my shoulders back and walking anywhere with some kind of a feeling confident, just walking in, and people can feel, they get that vibration from you, man or woman. If you walk in sort of quietly, yes, then you're not going to be noticed. If you have a vibration coming off you, an aura of not look at me, but I am me, I'm worthy, then I think that makes a big difference.
So just so I get this right, there might be some supermarket out there, you're quite popular now, but there might be some supermarket in Quain or Russell Kema where you might not be recognized today. But if you do walk in, you will not feel invisible again because you have internally built that confidence or that aura.
Yeah, and I was never confident. I would never go out in the evening by myself without my husband. It wouldn't occur to me to get dressed up to go to an event by myself. I just would have said no. And now I generally go anywhere I'm invited because you never know what opportunity is going to be there. You could walk in and think, oh no, this isn't working, and leave, but at least you've made the effort to get out there.
The feeling invisible is not because other people are not noticing you. It's because internally, probably you don't feel like you're that confident enough or worthy enough. Is that right?
Any feeling that you have is your feeling. It's you. You can say other people made you feel that way, but it's still the way you interpret it, isn't it? So you have to work on yourself and make yourself not feel that way. I did have some sessions with Andrea Zoya, and she would literally say, speak about that for 1 minute. And we went through about 15 things on camera. But you get to about 15 and you can do it. But that really helps.
It's just a practice of...
Exactly. Yeah. And people say to me, oh, how do you, I want to be a model. How can I get used to being in front of the camera? Take selfies. You're going to have 300 crap pictures, but maybe you'll have one. And just keep doing it. Look at the youngsters these days. They're doing it all day, every day. So just keep practicing.
Do you ever wonder how your life would have been different if you hadn't gotten the first gig with Rosemary Water?
Now there's a question no one has ever asked.
That intern's getting erased.
Gosh. Well, I hope that I would have changed because I need to show my daughter that I'm a confident individual, not just her mum, and that I'm capable of whatever I want, whatever I set my mind on. Because I find that that women generally don't do things for themselves. Maybe that's changing, but certainly from my generation, they don't talk about facelifts, they don't talk about Botox, they don't talk about anything that they do for themselves. It's all a secret. And I think possibly they're ashamed. They certainly don't want to tell their husbands. They hide it from their husbands. But what is that teaching our children? It's teaching them that we're not individuals, that we can't do things for ourselves.
Do you think you would have been on the same path as you are now, if not for that one moment? Like, was it an inevitable part of the journey you had taken, or it was like something that happened by luck and then it just changed your life?
I've honestly never thought of it. Would I have been invited to China? Because that was the next big thing that happened to me. Would I have had the confidence to go to China? Probably not. To be invited to go to a beauty pageant in China, where I found out that very few people speak English, and the food is horrible.
But you ended up winning.
But
right?
I ended up winning.
Yeah.
I know. Probably not is the answer to that. It was a big footprint for me. Oh, God, that's such a great. I'm really going to have to do some deep thinking about that. But probably it wouldn't have bolstered the confidence. Yes. It wouldn't have made me realize that I could be a model, because it wasn't on my list of things to do. It wasn't like, I'm going to go and be a model now. It did happen out of the blue. And taking every opportunity after that was something that I kind of ticked that box in my head. Right, I'm going to go out and do everything I can now. I was still exercising. I still would have done the 100 kilometers. So I guess I would have been the best version I could have been of myself, but I wouldn't have been shouting about it.
Right. Do you think also the timing worked out? Because at that moment, you had this moment in Kafo and you were really thinking about what you want to do next and whether you want to spend the next 50 years waiting around or just doing something. So it just came at the right moment. Yes. It was the right project because your daughter was involved in it as well. So it just felt like something you get into. And then it just took off. Yeah, it just took off.
Yes. So it's all very well to say dream, but if you don't actually have the dream in the first place, how can you dream it? But believing that there is something better out there. Right. I think that's a good dream to have.
And being ready for it when it comes.
Yes. What's next? I don't know.
Sounds great. So you ended up taking the project and multiple others. One of the toughest parts about modeling, what I think, but I might be wrong, is the projection, is being able to portray a certain visual, like how the brand wants it to be. Is that something that came naturally to you? Did you have to train for it? Or you just walked in the first day and it was...
It really helps if you like the product. I do find it tricky. I had a job yesterday and it was for Ramadan, and I had to open a box and go, I love that, but I didn't love it.
Right.
And I had to do it multiple times. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So it sometimes it works first time. It's great if it works first time, because by the 10th or 12th time you're thinking, I really don't love it. So it and then it depends who's directing it, because it's hard to smile all day, and I like to think of myself as resting bitch face. I'm good at that. I'm not as good when people say, we want you animated and happy. Yeah. I go, oh God, really? I'm not that type of person. And I don't like making a fool of myself in public. Right. So don't record me after a glass of champagne, because one glass of champagne and that's it. Yeah, you get used to it. I'm not sure that you get better at it, but practice makes perfect.
You would ace the campaign which asks someone to have a resting bitch face.
Yes.
That would be...
Yeah, that ideal. Yeah, no smiling.
Do that in your sleep.
Yeah. Well.
What do you think are some of the advantages of starting modeling quite later in your career? I was about to say old, and I was like, I just stopped myself. Today, it feels this is an industry where conventionally people start by young, and nowadays with the access that Instagram or TikTok provides, it's now uncommon for people who are 15 or 16 to have a great following, and then by the time they're 18, they have a modeling contract, or even they're just an influencer, they're already in the business. So what do you think are the advantages you have because you started much later in life? that these people might not have?
Definitely less competition.
Right.
A lot less competition. You're not sitting on a sofa full of brunettes.
Right.
With the same lips.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of gorgeous young ladies out there. They tend to look similar. So I think that is one bonus. Having grey hair, probably the best decision I ever made. And also, I think we have found our identities in our 50s. So if I do go to a casting and there's more than one of me, we are very different because we know who we are, or we've got further down the line of learning who we are.
You're comfortable being who you are, so you don't feel like there's competition because you're very unique. And
yeah, because you either want me or you want that person, because we're very different.
And that might not happen if you're quite young, just being shoved into it.
No, because I think they might argue, the young people, and say they are individuals, but if you go on an Instagram, the younger people, I do think they tend to look similar. And they've got so much to learn from life too. You can't know everything in your 20s and 30s. Not that I know everything. I still have a lot to learn, but I think we are getting to a point where we are more comfortable in our own skins.
Yeah. Robert Frost once said that the afternoon knows what the morning never expected. And I think it does apply in this situation as well.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, same here. I love Robert Frost. Okay, so let's keep chugging along in this ultramarathon of the interview.
Yes.
I wanted to get clarification from you on certain statements you made. You're quite outspoken, and you've spoken a lot about issues that a lot of women face. And it's very easy, because these are quite highly contested issues, easy for statements to be taken out of context or misinterpreted. So I wanted to get your clarification. One, don't worry about it. One statement that you mentioned in the past is that you're feminine, but you're not a feminist.
I believe men and women are different. And maybe it's because in my mind, some feminists who are very outspoken believe that a woman can do everything a man can. I'd rather be, I don't know. I don't like confrontation at all. I would rather back down than have confrontation. But from my standing, my husband and I are very different. And I love him for that. But we've made it more so in that he does the jobs that I'd rather not do, and I do the jobs he would rather not do. So that is also fixed in my mind. And my father did the same thing.
Do you think that's more of a gender-based segregation of roles or responsibilities? Or it's just that what you both are comfortable with, you've already identified? But it doesn't have to be that a woman has to do something particular?
No, it's that he is stronger than me because he has balls and I don't. He has more testosterone than I do. Literally. But there again, he probably couldn't go through childbirth because women are made to go through that kind of pain, and many women are better at pain than men. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is that feminism today does not really account for the fact that there are differences between the two genders.
I don't believe that a man can do everything a woman can, and that a woman can do everything a man can. No.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is.
We can both play Lego.
Yes.
But I don't know. That's just the way that I've been brought up, and that's the way I live my life.
There's another statement that you made was, you've said that...
I'm dreading this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I say?
Don't worry, just getting clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, you've said that not everyone needs to be celebrated, and you were speaking particularly about people who are overweight or plus size models as well. So is this something as well you still believe?
It is, because I don't believe, having spoken to multiple doctors, that overweight is healthy, and overweight has become normal. And that worries me, because it isn't okay to be overweight. But that's what plus size models are portraying. So if somebody's on Facebook and they're saying, oh, I've put on a few pounds, where do I go shopping now? Well, don't go shopping and buy bigger size clothes. Spend the money on doing something about your weight. You're going to live longer. You're going to be healthier, and put the clothes on that are already in your wardrobe.
The most common argument.
Am I going to be hated for saying that?
No, don't worry about it. In fact, what I actually like is, like, I would love to see a discussion.
I know, me too. This is the whole woke thing again, isn't it? You can't discuss it.
Right.
You can't bring it up. You're not allowed to say it.
Yeah, it feels like every time you speak of the topic, there's a lot of name calling. And immediately it just becomes this shit show of just insults.
Yes.
But I would just like to see the debate go ahead.
I know.
Because personally, I'm not well researched or well informed, so I have no comments on it. I would love to hear from both sides and then see. I mean, that's how you would have actual discussions. So,
yes, and we would learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But sitting with somebody who's overweight and then saying that they're happy, you may be happy, but you're probably not healthy.
Right. The most common argument that I've heard against this is that a lot of people have been driven to the brink of depression or suicide even because of being fat shamed or bullied or prejudiced because of how they look. So.
But, okay. But then do something about it. If you can't, and it's a medical issue, then obviously just say, I can't, it's a medical issue, but don't say, I'm fine with it. Right. Are you fine with it? Are you happy? And have you been to the doctor? Have you had your heart checked? A doctor recently said to me, there are no fat people in old people's homes because they've died in hospital before they get to. No. And so the reason I want to be the healthiest I can is because I want to be around for my grandchildren. I don't want to be dying in a hospital. Sorry.
No, a lot of things to think about, actually.
I know,
I'm also
but yes, discussing it is the most important thing. Don't hate me for saying it. Invite me for coffee. Let's go and sit down and have coffee and have a chat about it.
Do you think it's a shifting of responsibility in this case? Because if someone is feeling depressed or on the brink of suicidal thoughts, saying that they need to go out there and change their life, do you think that's shifting the responsibility to them when instead there are a lot of people who shouldn't bully people or shouldn't fat shame or shouldn't have any prejudice?
I think you do need to take some responsibility yourself. In England, they're talking about this sugar tax. Shut up. Don't be putting a sugar tax and making it more expensive for me to go and buy a sugary drink, because I'm not going to go and buy a sugary drink. But if I wanted to, don't be making it more expensive. Why is the government taking things away from you, like no sweets at the tills in the supermarkets, which they've done in England? Take responsibility for yourself. At least some of it.
I'm not sure if I'm paraphrasing right. Is it fine to normalize it to the extent that people don't end up hurting themselves, but we shouldn't celebrate it?
Maybe there's a middle ground.
Right.
I'm not talking about the women, the people who are committing suicide. That's a whole different ballgame. Sure. But if you need help, there is help out there. And maybe the government should be thinking of helping them mentally rather than putting the prices up or even giving you free exercise. Well, giving free exercise classes is not a bad thing, but you don't actually need to pay to exercise. You can go walking or running, which is what I do. I don't go to a gym or take classes.
Do you think there's a fine line between celebrating something and normalizing it? So taking you as an example, you've made it okay for women to have gray hair at any age. And do you think making that acceptable involves celebrating the women the way they look and whatever traits they have?
Don't really understand the question. Celebrating grey people?
Yeah, so the question is to make something acceptable. So let's say people being overweight, there has to be a celebration of how they look or how they are as people. Do you think there's a line between that? Do you think there's a point where we can say it's okay to be who you are and not be shamed for it or not have any negative emotions, but we're not celebrating as well because
it's not okay for you to be happy with yourself if you are led to believe that the club that you've joined is a good club to be in. So if you see on all the magazines and TV advertisements that large is normal and okay, what is that going to teach the children? And I'm not saying that skinny is not, that can be unhealthy too. So there is there's a middle ground.
Find the healthy middle ground.
Yes, but I don't believe that we should be celebrating being overweight.
So while we were talking about gray hair, do you feel sometimes that you've now made gray hair your brand? So tomorrow if you want purple hair, red hair, green hair, would you lose your following?
Ooh, would I? Yes, I probably would. Probably would. Yes, gosh. No, I can't touch my hair.
So you will never now?
No. I've been many colours in the years. I've had the perm. I've done all the things, and I fought the grey for many years. But no, it's taken 7 years to get to this. So no, not going anywhere.
There's also this common adage that never ask a woman her age. Do you think we should just ask? Just make it normal for women to be a certain age, 35, 45, 50?
I think it's, again, ask questions. We will never learn, ever, about anything without being able to ask questions. So I'll get comments on Instagram, for example, saying, oh, well, my mum's older than you and she looks younger than you. Great. Put her picture on Instagram. Show us. Brilliant. Celebrate the fact. Don't be nasty to me about it. So yes, age is just a number. Many people who are 56 will look better than me. Many will look the same, and many won't look as good. There's a whole world out there. We all have our own tribe. But I don't think there's anything wrong with asking it. If you don't want to answer it, don't answer it. But I don't think there's anything wrong.
I remember this quote where it said that you don't stop laughing when you grow old. You grow old when you stop laughing.
Ooh, yeah. Get you.
Yeah,
you're on a roll.
Unpaid. Not me.
Good guys.
Good going. Yeah, they're all hiding in the closets. Okay, so before we start wrapping up, I would love to get your interpretation of what we've built with the Lego here.
Right. Well, yours don't look like anything. I just signed to point. I think mine is more aesthetically pleasing.
What have you built?
Well, I really wanted the other two pieces to these because then it would have looked like a mushroom.
It's half a mushroom.
It's half a mushroom. There you go.
Yeah.
What's
amazing.
yours?
Well, I don't know. I wanted to get your idea.
It isn't anything. Yeah. It's nothing.
It could be something.
You get 10 out of 10 for creativity.
I never got that in school. It's always the science kid, the engineering one. Never got any points for creativity. Okay, so final questions. What are some books, movies, people that are very strongly influenced in your life?
Well, look at that. Yeah. Seriously impressed.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. Yeah. Judi Dench, I love, English actress. And I love the wrinkles on her face. I love that she is happy to live with them. She's got a tattoo. They're both strong women. I love Jane Fonda because she's had facelifts and looks awesome and she's spoken about it. And so they'd be my two top women for very different reasons. I just don't want to be wrinkly, so I'm going down the Jane Fonda route.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great route to go down.
Yeah, wouldn't you?
I wish I could look like Jane Fonda at her age. What would you like your legacy to be like?
Oh, it would definitely be encouraging women to know themselves from their 20s. Track your periods, track your health, track your moods, so that when things do start to change, being perimenopause, I know I bang on about this, but perimenopause happens on average between 39 and 41, which is very young, and many women don't know that perimenopause happens about 10 years before menopause.
Right.
So look after yourself and
what
track
are some
yourself.
of the symptoms?
Oh my gosh. Well, they're very similar to underactive thyroid. So you've got hair loss, lack of libido, depression. Not very good nails. Sweats come later on. People just imagine menopause, old, hot sweats. But there are many, many, many symptoms that you need to know about 30 of them. So, yeah, start tracking yourself.
Final question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
Knowing that it is or can be exciting forever. Living life, and not just existing.
Can be exciting forever. That's a great meaning to have. Caroline, thank you so much for coming to the show. If people want to connect with you online, in person, how can they do so?
But don't hate me.
Why would they?
I think anyone with an opinion these days is well, it just seems like you're not allowed to have an opinion anymore, but I love the idea of free discussion, and it's the way we learn.
Yeah, I mean, the hope of the show is to actually have discussion and debate, and not the name calling, the divisive nature we've started to see. So I really appreciate that you are that outspoken and you believe in your thoughts, and I would love to see that discussion go forward from people who don't agree with you.
Yeah, maybe you should get 2 people on here next time.
Yeah, if I can afford 2 mics. One more.
We can share.
Yeah. So if people want to connect with you online, Instagram, maybe, where can they connect with you?
I have a website. Or DM. I answer all my DMs, except marriage proposals.
Do you get them?
I do. You sound surprised.
No, I am a bit shocked because on Instagram it's quite apparent that you are married.
Wouldn't you think? I know. But I get asked how old I am very, very, very often also, and that's also on my bio, so who knows.
Stop sending marriage proposals, guys. Caroline, thank you so much for coming to the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.